I'm Catherine Ross, and I'm here live from the NYSE with Jim Cramer. Jim, we've got a lot to cover this morning.
We sure do.
I really want to jump right in, though, with your real money column, which covers a lengthy checklist for investors.
And today's a day where they're kind of, I'm glad I did the checklist, but today's a day where they're saying, okay, wait a second, maybe the checklist companies are down too much, and I think a lot of people are focused on Dollar Tree and Dollar General as giving them hope. I'll have to do something about Dollar Tree and Dollar General for real money. That maybe things aren't that bad, but the checklist piece is really vital because you will see what will go down if you follow that checklist, and you'll see that there's stocks that are up, and those will get sold. Okay, and it's really important that people recognize that today is a day where you're kind of getting a little opportunity. And now I said last night on the show, and I said in Real Money yesterday, we're not selling anything here. We're not, because we have cash. If you don't have cash, you have to use days like today or mornings like today to do some repositioning. And when you finish the repositioning, let's say you have $50,000 in the market. Well, maybe you take out 10, put back 5 in the stocks that are down the most. That's kind of what you got to do right now.
Now, Jim, I've got a copy of your Real Money column, and I picked out of the 7 points that you made, I picked out 3 that stood out to me and might stand out to you guys as investors. So I want to start with the first one, and that is actually your first point. You say, how much China? And you bring up the fact that Chinese companies aren't willing to swallow the 25% tariffs.
Well, this is a new tariff. I mean, look, the May 10th, we were discussing, David, PVH. Something happened after in the beginning of May that Manny Chiricos, the CEO of PVH, talked about. But a lot of it has to do with the zeitgeist of China. But then I drilled down, and something that Katie Huberty drills down too, and I'll maybe talk about this tonight, is that some companies really suffer from both potential tariff in China and potential tariff in the United States. And that's why Apple's been so weak. And I still stand by my Apple, own it, don't trade it. But I know when a stock's going lower, and Katie Huberty has a very good lesson about how it goes lower. Well, why do you own something that could go lower? And the answer is you don't know when a break in trade could occur. There's no reason to think that the president's not tone deaf. If the president really drills down on an Apple exemption, that would be terrific. But, their specific Commerce Department put a very big tariff today on mattresses. That's a clarion call to buy Leggett & Platt, which missed the quarter. It's LEG, raised the dividend, and is got a clear growth path now because they're really the leading mattress, in terms of their business. But then again, I mean, it's a big, 1,700% tariff. That kind of tariff goes right to Beijing. But at the same time, we have Dennis Muhlenberg saying all the right things for Boeing last night. So Boeing should be the most hurt. It's not hurt that much. Today's an inconsistent day, but it's consistent enough in terms of the checklist of what you should be selling.
So going back to the checklist, I want to point out the second point that I pulled out, which is it levered to the U.S. consumer? Now, you say that you have long felt that the most reliable indicator of the U.S. consumer is PVH, which is our real money stock of the day, and we'll get more in-depth into that in a minute.
Move the camera for a second. Just follow my finger, okay? JCPenney is a gigantic PVH customer, okay? Look where that stock is at 86 cents. Now remember, they said some things on their conference call, which indicated that they think that they've got a good game plan. They've got debt tranches that you don't have to repay until the end of 2020. But that's what PVH is. I mean, that's you go to a JCPenney, it's filled with PVH stuff.
But TJ Maxx is doing much better than JCPenney, and I would say that they also do PVH. They also are a huge consumer.
That's because every time JCPenney closes a store, that stuff goes to TJX or Burlington. You see Burlington had a good number. Dollar General, good. I mean, the places that are giving you the real bargains are doing well, and the places that are able to have clout, like Walmart, Costco, doing well. Target. So, we've got a very split move. The companies that are hostage to China, meaning hostage to PVH, hostage to China. Now, there have been some misstatements. Manny does not have that much Chinese exposure in terms of supplier, because he sources all over the world. He likes Egyptian cotton, by the way. But he does have exposure to China, which is slowing, and exposure to the U.S., which is slowing. And the parts that are slowing at the U.S. are JCPenney, Macy's and unfortunately Kohl's, which we own Fraction Alert. But there's a reason why a stock goes from 75 to 50. A very good article I read in a magazine about how don't confuse Kohl's with Penny. Michelle Goss is doing a good job. They've got a great
so many partnerships too.
Yeah, they got just added a new one. They've got the Fanatics, which is a guy that I've interviewed from Philadelphia, Ruben. I happen to think that we're at a moment where people are trying to figure out, okay, what can I buy? And if the president's strong in a poll, they'll buy UNH. If there's possibility of a Chinese deal, well, they'll go buy a beat-up retailer. But otherwise, what happens is that every day you come in and you say, wow, I cannot believe I got a chance to sell Boeing. And I that's what they say. I can't believe I got a chance to sell Caterpillar. I think that selling Caterpillar here is dumb. I think it's 10 down, and I think it's 30 up. There are a lot of stocks I feel that way, not the auto stocks, but a lot of industrials I feel that way because I trust the president. I'm not saying he gives you a put because he's too irrational for that, but I do think that, and a better word to say is rash. He's too rash, but I do think that he will. The hardliners say don't look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average. The others that surround him are saying, don't forget, we don't want the stock market down. Our constituents own stock. President is mixed on the stock market. Every time I ever talk about the stock market, in all the years I've known him, his eyes kind of glaze over. He's just not interested in the stock market. He's in real estate. But I just caution people, you're getting it. I think today could be a decent day, but that means a decent day to reposition.
Now, Jim, the third and final point that I want to point out is something that really intrigues me. I got to be honest. Your third and final point is, do millennials have an aversion? And you point out that they have an aversion to plastic. They have an aversion to can. They have an aversion to process.
Kraft Heinz. I mean, geez, look at Kraft Heinz. That's just millennials speaking. And by this point, the millennials have made up their minds. You decide what you are going to stick with, if you're going to stick with something between 17 and 20. The millennials are fickle, so they don't necessarily stay with any one thing. But we know that they can't stand inauthentic, and they can't stand preservatives. They can't stand the pantry. And that defines Kraft Heinz. And Kraft Heinz is really a metaphor for a company that forgot. They forgot that the customer's taste changed. They just figured you cut. General Mills understands it, and that's why I was surprised that Goldman took it to a sell yesterday. But I do think that if you understand what the consumer wants, unfortunately, for instance, Altria knows what the consumer wants. They want the jewel, so they tie up with the jewel. Bruce
I gotta say, though, on the jewel front, I'm amazed by how many people I've passed walking down the streets of New York who are just jeweling.
Oh, no, this is a really unfortunate thing. They've done quite well with jewel. And jewels, they'll tell you over and over again, listen, we're not encouraging anyone under 21. Well, think about when you were in college. Were you underage? Did you drink? I mean, come on. So there's an obvious nature of bad at Altria, but I'm warming up to Altria as a stock, even though I will never recommend a tobacco. But if someone came to me and said, how do you feel about Altria? I said, look, I would never recommend a tobacco stock, but they're doing the right thing with Juul because of the millennials, and also because of Gen Z. But plastic, people associate that with the big island in the Pacific, so they don't want to own the plastic. The stock's down 10 straight points. The Kraft Heinz, they certainly don't want that. Against that, there's no real natural food except for Beyond Meat. Now, Beyond Meat, of course, isn't really natural, but it's the chemicals are ridiculous. That's a short squeeze, by the way. Those who are buying Beyond Meat, you have to understand, it's kind of like Shake Shack when Shake Shack came public. You understand you're involved in a short squeeze, not unlike Tilray. And a short squeeze, there will come a day where that stock will go down big. Now, I don't know which day it is, but at least you just got to know what you're playing with.
Apparently it's not today because it went over at 102 in pre-market.
I mean, maybe that is the day when it has that big move as people try to get in ahead of what they know, again, is another day of the short squeeze.
Now, Jim, I want to talk to you about retail a little bit more. Now, I know that we've already mentioned PVH, and I've already mentioned to you guys that it is real money stock of the day. But I want to go...
Good because remember, you're really talking about a reverberation throughout the system. And you're also talking about PVH having $400 million in China last year in terms of production costs. But you're also talking about a man who is correctly identified back-to-school season when it was going to be good, holiday season. His record of prediction is extraordinary, and that's why I like him so much. Well, I like him because he's also a very nice, good man. I mean, at this point, he's been on so many times. His grandfather, he met my nephew, who is my head writer, only writer. He's just a good guy.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I got to introduce him to my wife. Anyway, it's
Got to make that plan.
kind of neither here nor there. Hey, my wife was, Bob Backus was very solicitous to my wife last night at the Rocket Man, but we'll save that.
That was the Rocket Man.
No, we're saving that.
Oh, we got to save it? Okay.
No, we're saving that.
So then let's circle back to PVH. And if you really want to hear more about the Rocket Man, you can find that on Action Alerts Plus.
I want people to know, here's stock of the day. We go back and forth with Martin, who's just fantastic over in London.
That's Martin Backerdax, our London Bureau Chief.
Yeah, and we all look at a bunch of them. Do we do Tesla? Well, we did Tesla. Do you do the Dollar General? I mean, Dollar Tree, Dollar General would have been good. We'll have to focus more on that. But PVH is a clarion call because PVH was so downbeat. And you're talking about Calvin Klein, okay, which read really bad numbers, really bad, and Tommy Hilfiger. Sometimes you wonder, geez, is the next thing that's going to happen if the president keeps picking fights? Are people going to go against Tommy Hilfiger, who's kind of red, white, and blue? I think that the president's picking fights with everybody, which is a little depressing. But I recognize that Manny is just the bellwether, okay? Dollar Tree and Dollar General are also important because it shows you that the consumer's pulling back. That's where you shop. I think that Dollar Tree represents a great bargain. I'll be there this weekend.
Now, it was pretty wild to me yesterday to watch Canada Goose and Abercrombie & Fitch fall over 15%.
I talked to Danny, and I love Danny. He's CEO of Canada Goose. And Danny was trying to tell me that, look, the things are still consistent. And they are, but the market's saying now it's a fad. It's funny because go look at Canada Goose and take a look at a longer term. You'll see that it was fad. And then go look at Lululemon, okay? And you'll see, wow, I mean, that's the consistent one. That's no fad. COLM is not a fad. So you have to go with the ones that are people decided it's faddish. Some nice Canadian fellows were talking to me and said, when do you buy Canada Goose? And I said, I didn't mean to be facetious. I said, when it's done going down.
Well,
because people are dumping it furiously.
I'm glad that you bring that up because in terms of PVH, in terms of retail stocks that are falling this heavily anyway, is now the time for retail investors to cut their losses and run?
No, it's pretty much too late for a lot of these. First of all, you don't know whether you're gonna have a Dollar Tree, Dollar General in your hand, or you have a look at Kohl's at nice yielder, and Michelle Goss will figure it out. She's got to tie in with Amazon. Macy's is tougher. I don't see the momentum there. JCPenney, Jesus, dropped you since we've been talking.
Down to 87 cents. Now, I want to talk to you.
I mean, the 83 open. Now you can say that's hanging in. I mean, look, my problem with why am I talking about JCPenney? It's gigantic.
It is gigantic.
It's gigantic. Like 100,000 people work there.
But Jim, I can't remember the last time I went to a JCPenney because if I get the choice, I'm going to go to TJ Maxx.
I went 2 years ago. Got a nice hat and nice slacks. My wife reminded me, they don't use the term slacks anymore. My father was a gabardine slacks salesperson at Gimbel's and got fired. Always remember that.
Now, Jim, let's switch gears because we got to talk Uber. I mean, this is going to be huge. Their first earnings report tonight.
I mean, it's hard to do worse than they're doing. I mean, if they show any acceleration, this could be a nice thing. Dara, I believe in Dara. I think the problem with Uber is they peaked. But maybe you can say, listen, I'm seeing a little acceleration. If you see a little acceleration, we're going to have a good day tomorrow.
You say they peaked, but they never even hit their IPO pricing.
No, I'm saying that business peaked in
their business peaked
in Q4, it looks like, which reminds me of Facebook. But you know what? He should talk about Uber Freight. I think that Uber Freight's doing fabulously. That would be a great thing to highlight.
What about their food delivery?
Food, very competitive. Applebee's out with a piece saying that maybe they don't even like it. People have to understand that it's really hard to make money if you sell liquor at your establishment because the people who take it out obviously aren't buying your liquor. McDonald's is trying to work on something good, but you got DoorDash, you got Grubhub, which is heavy saturation advertising, by the way. You have Postmates, which is a still aggressive company, and you have Uber, so the margins are really bad. I know that there's some proprietary software that Grubhub is developing, but it is very hard to go up against Uber.
All right, so before we go, we got to get to my favorite topic of the day, which is investing education.
Of course.
And based on Palo Alto's earnings last night, which we're going to go into more over on our daily rundown at Action Alerts Plus. But my question to you, Jim, is should a company be making acquisitions in such a highly volatile market?
Well, I think Nikesh, the CEO, is an inquisitive fellow, and he's not looking at the market. He's just saying this is a good product to add to my suite. Look, the thing, in order to go up against Cisco, you need Nikesh to round up CyberArk and Proofpoint, and that's not what he's going for. We're going to have very thorough analysis all throughout the day of Palo Alto. We had an emergency meeting, obviously, this morning to talk about it because I was none too happy. But I think it could clarify a lot of things.
I'll be looking forward to that analysis, and of course you can find that over on actionalertsplus.com, where we are about to start moving. So guys, thank you, Jim, for joining us.
Thank you, Catherine.
And guys, that's all we have time for today. For all of you watching on TheStreet.com or on Facebook, as I already said, we are now jumping over to our Action Alerts Plus daily rundown over on actionalertsplus.com. Thank you for joining us. I'm Catherine Ross, and we'll see you tomorrow.